today, what are they leaving behind? They are leaving behind a bankrupt economy.
We believe in lower taxes as a government for industry, and we are working others aggressively with the GRA and to be cemented with the Standing Committee of the Mutual Prosperity Dialogue.
Hello and you're welcome to a very special edition of BizTech on GhanaWeb TV with me, Mauli Aholimega. Today we are in the Parliament House of Ghana, where the Finance Minister, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, will be presenting the 2024 budget presentation before Parliament. The presentation is expected to be a crucial one after Ghana entered a deal with the International Monetary Fund for the 17th bailout. We'll be bringing you updates from the Finance Minister's presentation and also reactions from both the majority and the minority side of Parliament following that budget presentation by the Finance Minister. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Identification scheme to ensure that 17.5 million eligible Ghanaians acquire security-sensitive ID cards. This has laid the foundation for a prosperous future where digitalization provides more convenience, introduces an added layer of efficiency in delivery of public services, and enhances our ability to safeguard our national interests. Mr. Speaker, I want to stress at this juncture that Ghana has paid its dues, Ghana has turned a corner, and we are getting back on track. Despite these successes, we have to do more to reinforce our stability and guarantee decent jobs with good pay for the young people of our country. As such, through the 2024 budget, we'll deliver even more investment across the rail sector to place our economy on a firm growth trajectory that will create more jobs, safeguard our climate prospects, and deeply entrench Ghana as the seed country of Africa's development renaissance. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to invest in ongoing projects, and on the external front, we'll conclude negotiations with the Official Creditor Committee to ensure that the work on eligible externally funded projects resume. We will, through the Ghana Mutual Prosperity Dialogue, be intentional about collaboration with the private sector and our development partners to support local businesses, attract FDI, and enhance the economic prospects of our people. Indeed, given the potential to upscale and the multiplier effects that our small and medium-sized businesses possess, government intends to scale up support to young entrepreneurs and fledgling businesses with a singular aim to create sustainable jobs across all communities. In this view, the Ministry has teamed up with MEDA and is committing $1 billion Ghana cedis to ensure that our enclave projects in developing our productive capacity for exports. Mr. Speaker, we are also positioning a generation of Ghanaians to secure our leadership in the global arena. Today, our country hosts the headquarters of the AFCFTA. We also have a privileged position Mr. Speaker, we are also positioning our generation to secure our leadership in the global arena. Today, our country hosts the headquarters of the AFCFTA. We also have a privileged position in leading the climate change charge. As the agreed host of the Climate Vulnerable Forum Secretariat, we are galvanizing a coalition of 68 nations and 1.7 billion people to shape the climate discourse and secure resources for a just energy transition. Mr. Speaker, that is the promise of this budget, and we'll keep our eyes firmly fixed on the future and build lasting prosperity for this and the next generation. Mr. Speaker, as members recall, we came into government in 2017 in a period of grave despondency, meager resources of 2 fish and 5 loaves. Today, we can only marvel at how the Lord has multiplied these resources. I'll now proceed, Mr. Speaker, to update the House on the macro-fiscal performance of the economy. Mr. Speaker, please permit me to present the macro performance of the first 3 quarters of 2023 within the context of the targets that were set in the 2023 Mid-Year Fiscal Policy Review. Before I proceed, it's important that I restate the targets we set in the 2023 Mid-Year Fiscal Review. These include overall GDP growth of 1.5%, non-oil real GDP rate of 1.5%, end period inflation of 31.3%, overall balance commitment of overall primary balance commitment of minus 5.7% of GDP, primary balance commitment basis of minus 5% of GDP, and gross international reserves, excluding oil funds, encumbered assets and pledged assets, sufficient to cover at least 0.8 months of imports of goods and services by end 2023. Mr. Speaker, provisional macroeconomic data on the performance of the economy for the periods Q1 to Q3 2023 demonstrated government's relentless commitment to keep us on the high road to recovery. The IMF rightly described Ghana's recent macroeconomic performance in the first review as compelling performance, and I quote, "Honorable members, may we wish to refer to the IMF's press release numbered PR23/339 and dated 6 October 2023 for this update." Mr. Speaker, I'll now update the House on the performance of our macroeconomic indicators. Real GDP growth averaged 3.2% in the first half of 2023, compared to 2.9% in the same period in 2022, signaling a strong rebound. Robust growth in services averaged 6.3%, and agriculture also averaged 6.2%. Sectors were the key drivers. It is instructive to note that the average growth of 3.2% for the first 2 quarters of 2023 is higher than 2023 revised growth target of 1.5%. Price developments indicate that inflation is on a declining path in response to ongoing fiscal consolidation, appropriate tightening of monetary policy, and relative stability in the exchange rate. Headline inflation declined by over 16 percentage points from 34.1% in December 2022 to 38.1% in September 2023 and 35.2% as of October 2023. The cedi has stabilized against the US dollar since early 2023. With a year-to-date, Mr. Speaker, a year-to-date cumulative depreciation of 25% compared to 54% in 2022. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, the cedi has only depreciated by 6.4% on cumulative basis since February 2023, compared to, Mr. Speaker, 53.9% over the same period in 2022. The stability of the cedi largely reflects the positive impact from the restoration of economic activity, including robust economic growth, improvement in the current account position, improvement in forex liquidity following the IMF ECF inflows, Bank of Ghana's domestic gold purchase program, reduced speculative forex demand as market confidence rebounds. Gross international reserves as of September 2023 stood at 5 billion, 2.3 months import cover, compared to 6.3 billion, 2.7 months import cover at the end of 2022, but expecting only a 0.8 months at mid-year when we stood here to pronounce where we were heading to. We are yet, Mr. Speaker, to reflect IMF, World Bank, and Cocoa Bank indications of approximately $2 billion by year end. The current account turned positive at 1.1% of GDP at end June 2023, a monumental turnaround from the deficit of 2.1% of GDP at end December 2022. Likewise, the trade balance improved to a surplus of 2.6% of GDP as of end August 2023 from 0.7% of GDP surplus at end December 2022. Though interest rates moderated from December 2022 to the first quarter 2023, they picked up again as T-bills remain the key debt instrument in the debt market after the DDEP. For instance, the 91-day Treasury declined from 35.5% in December 2022 to 18.5% in March 2023, but increased to 29.8% as of Monday, 13th November 2023. The overall budget deficit on commitment basis as of end August 2023 was a deficit of 3.0% of GDP, outperforming the targeted deficit of 4.6% of GDP. The outturn largely reflects improvements in revenue mobilization and slower execution of expenditure. The corresponding primary balance on commitment basis was a deficit of 0.7% of GDP, also outperforming the target surplus of 0.9% of GDP. Public debt accumulation has slowed down significantly as government continued to consolidate its public finances and also reflects the impact of the domestic debt exchange program and the ongoing external debt restructuring. Total public debt has declined from 73.1% of GDP at the end of 2022, Mr. Speaker, to 66.4% of GDP as at September 2023. The completion of external debt restructuring is expected to further improve Ghana's debt to GDP ratio. Mr. Speaker, based on the overall macroeconomic objectives and the medium-term targets, the following macroeconomic targets are set for the 2024 fiscal year. Overall real GDP growth of at least 2.8%, non-oil real GDP growth of at least 2.1%, end period inflation rate of 5.0%, primary balance on commitment basis of a surplus of 0.5% of GDP, and gross international reserve to cover not less than 3 months of imports. Mr. Speaker, the 2024 and medium-term fiscal framework has been prepared in line with the objectives and policy priorities of a 3-year IMF-supported PCPEC program. The primary balance on commitment basis is the fiscal anchor we are using to assess our fiscal effort. Over the medium term, we plan to improve the primary balance commitment from a deficit of 4.3% of GDP in 2022 to deficit of 0.5% of GDP in 2023, a huge 3.9% adjustment. The primary balance is expected to improve further to a surplus at 0.5% of GDP in 2024 and 1.5% of GDP from 2025 onwards. Mr. Speaker, total revenue and grants is projected at 176.4 billion Ghana cedis, 16.8% of GDP as we move towards our 18% target. And this is underpinned by permanent revenue measures, largely tax revenue measures amounting to 0.9% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure is projected at 226.7 billion, 21.6% of GDP. This projection reflects a reduction of 6.1 percentage points of GDP in total expenditure commitment basis compared to the outturn in 2022. This large decrease comes from the combination of fiscal consolidation efforts of 4.9 percentage points of GDP, reflecting an adjustment in revenue by 1.1 percentage point and primary expenditure by 3.9 percentage points of GDP. The potential interest rate savings from the ongoing external debt operation will further bolster public finance sustainability. Mr. Speaker, based on the estimates for total revenue and grants and total expenditure, including arrears clearance, the overall budget balance will be financed in a fiscal deficit of 61.9 billion, equivalent to 5.9% of GDP. The corresponding primary balance is a deficit of 5.9 billion, equivalent to 0.6%.
Everyone needs the perfect snack to munch on during a fun moment. Wow. Enjoy the tasty McBerry Twist cupcakes, deliciously baked and packaged for a sweet treat. Premium quality cakes baked with love for all, enriched in butter and milk.
Yummy.
Oh, McBerry Twist cupcakes, simply irresistible. Try one today. This advert is FDA approved.
Mr. Speaker, tax reliefs. Our approach to tax policy since 2017 was to give significant relief to the private sector until expenditure pressures from 2020 required a more aggressive approach. It is important to note that in the short term, fiscal sustainability requires that we improve our tax ratios significantly, otherwise our long-term competitiveness will be eroded. As we all know, our country's 13% tax to GDP ratio is far below our peers. Our target is 18 to 20%, and we are on course for 16%, hoping to be achieved this year. In that regard, it is difficult to implement all the structural reforms and tax reliefs needed to immediately lower and/or eliminate certain tax handles. However, I assure this august House that we have heard. We believe in lower taxes as a government for industry, and we are working at this aggressively with the GRA and to be cemented with the Standing Committee of the Mutual Prosperity Dialogue. Mr. Speaker, further to the above, the following reliefs have been prioritized for implementation. To extend, Mr. Speaker, the zero rate of VAT on locally manufactured African prints for 2 more years. Mr. Speaker, to waive import duties on import of electric vehicles for public transportation for a period of 8 years. Mr. Speaker, to waive import duties on semi-knocked down and completely knocked down electric vehicles imported by registered EV assembly companies in Ghana for a period of 8 years. Mr. Speaker, to extend zero rate of VAT on locally assembled vehicles for 2 more years. Mr. Speaker, to zero rate VAT on locally produced sanitary pads. Mr. Speaker, to grant import duty waivers for raw materials for the local manufacture of sanitary pads. Mr. Speaker, to grant exemptions on the importation of agricultural machinery equipment and inputs and medical consumables, raw materials for the pharmaceutical industry. Mr. Speaker, a VAT flat rate of 5% to replace the 15% standard VAT rate on all commercial properties will be introduced to simplify administration. To address the negative externalities of plastic waste and pollution, government will review and expand the environmental excise duty to cover plastic packaging and industrial and vehicle emissions. Mr. Speaker, the Stamp Duty Act 2005, Act 689, has not been reviewed since its enactment in 2005. To realign the rate with current economic realities, government in 2024 will review the rates and fees for stamp duties. The bands subject to ad valorem taxes will be expanded, while the specific rates will be reviewed. Mr. Speaker, a simplified tax return will be introduced as a means of promoting voluntary compliance as part of the modified taxation scheme for individuals in the informal sector. This approach will make it easier for taxpayers to fulfill their tax obligations to the state. Mr. Speaker, The tripartite committee has concluded negotiations on the national daily minimum wage. The tax-free portion of the individual income tax rate will accordingly be adjusted to take care of the change. Government recognizes the constraints our medical personnel face in providing healthcare for our citizens. With the passage of the Exemptions Act, government will engage the Ghana Medical Association on waivers for importation of vehicles to ease the transportation burden on our doctors. The policy will enable them to deliver quality and timely healthcare. Mr. Speaker, as a government, we have always been committed to protecting the quality of life of our people. Total wages and salaries for workers has increased from 14.7 billion in 2016 to 37.5 billion. All workers were paid full wages and salary on time, even when revenues plummeted during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the difficult economic challenges, we paid 15% cost of living allowance for 6 months in 2022 to cushion the 949,000 workers, some 50% more than we had in 2016. Mr. Speaker, in the rail sector, we expect overall rail GDP growth to increase from an expected 2.3% in 2023 to 2.8% and reach 5% in 2027. This yields an average growth rate of 4.3% over the 2024-2027 period. Non-oil rail GDP is projected to slow down from an estimated 2.8% in 2023 to 2.1% in 2024 and pick up to 5% by 2027, giving an average growth rate of 4.1% over the 2024-2027 period. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana has maintained the tight monetary policy stand to firm up the disinflation process. Among other measures, the bank has further raised the monetary policy rate by a cumulative 300 basis points in the year to September 2023 to 30%. In the outlook, monetary policy in 2024 and the medium term will aim to regain price stability. Inflation is expected to remain within the IMS program's monetary policy consultation clause of 29.4% with a symmetric band of 4% at the end of 2023, an end-year target of 15% in 2024, and trend further down to the medium-term target band of 8 plus or minus 2% by end December 2025. A tight monetary policy stance, favorable base drifts, relative stability on the foreign exchange market, and a favorable food harvest are expected to outweigh inflationary pressures over the near term. Mr. Speaker, part of PFJ2's program strategy is to support the private commercial agriculture under the Economic Enclaves project. Towards this, priority has been given to securing and developing lands to offer security of tenure for large-scale agriculture investments. The focus on large-scale commercial agriculture is to harness the benefits of scale and scope of economics, promote the adoption of technology for efficiency and standardization, as well as support price stabilization efforts. As of December 2022, 3 enclaves in Kasonya, Greater Accra, Kumewu, Ashanti, and Banda Oti region were operational. 5 out of 5 other enclaves are planned in 2024 to promote value addition, integration, and deepening aggregation and value chain systems to serve as economic growth goals. The 3 operational EEPs will lead to production of 160,000 metric tons of rice by end of 2024, over 110,000 acres of land in cultivation for the key staples. Private sector actors investing on EEP will provide employment for the youth with a target of at least 5,000 jobs. To implement the economic enclave at scale and speed, as I mentioned, Ghana cedis 1 billion has been allocated to Millennium Development Authority to complement PFJ 2.0. This funding will be dedicated to providing critical infrastructure, including irrigation canals, as well as cleaning and developing land for private sector actors in the EEP. Other key interventions under the Ghana Cares program, such as the completion of a foundry, will benefit from this funding. MEDA has a remarkable record from the implementation of 2 compacts under the Millennium Challenge Corporation, one of which was agriculture and agribusiness. They continue to demonstrate experience and ingenuity that will accelerate the delivery of the growth goals to transform agriculture in our country. Exports are expected to increase to 4 billion and 4.8 billion in 2024 from 3.51 billion in 2022. 271 license-free zone companies are expected to increase earnings to 2.19 billion in 2024 compared to earnings of 1.8 billion from 207 license-free zone companies in 2022. Mr. Speaker, Ghana remains the preferred tourist destination in the sub-region. The steady stream of domestic and international tourists also requires dedicated spaces in cities to drive a night economy and tourism. As we promote December in Ghana initiatives, we'll also work towards enhancing security and the lightning infrastructure. A task force comprising public regulators and private sector actors has already been established to drive the night economy initiative and the public-private partnership arrangements. This will successfully be done in the coming few days or weeks. The fund, Mr. Speaker, is also offering $250 million from the World Bank, supported by sub-fund targeted at qualifying banks and SDIs, and a CD equivalent of 500 million of GOG-funded sub-fund that will help, as I mentioned, to recapitalize a state-owned financial institution, as well as potentially supporting other indigenously controlled financial institutions. In addition, a provision of 4 billion has been made in the 2024 budget to address NIB, distressed SDIs, and other outstanding legacy policies in the financial sector. Notwithstanding the ongoing litigation commenced by shareholders of Black Shield Capital Management Limited, formerly Gold Shield Securities, the SEC will continue to engage the official liquidator and clients of the defined Black Shield to reach a consensus on a framework for a bailout, intervention, and an amicable resolution to the impact. Mr. Speaker, support for beneficiaries of the LEAP program was sustained in 2023. Government invested some $298 million to support 350,000 families. In 2024, the program will improve financing by 50% more and continue to provide meals to more schools to enhance basic school enrollment. The National Health Insurance Scheme, Mr. Speaker, is now active with coverage of 60 million people, representing 80% of the targeted group. Efforts to integrate the Ghana card into the enrollment. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with government's strong commitment to industrialization, a total of 169 One District, One Factory projects are currently operational, leading to a total employment of 169,000. An additional 152 factories are currently under construction and expected to be fully operational in 2024. These industries are expected to increase value addition and support our efforts to reset the economy. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of independent power producers, government has continued to engage key operational independent power producers in positive and constructive bilateral negotiations. Engagements have centered on the sustainability of Ghana's energy sector, as well as the restructuring of legacy IPPs and power purchase agreements, future-proven timely payment to IPPs going forward, and the implementation of critically needed energy sector reforms. Government aims, Mr. Speaker, to finalize commercial agreements with key IPPs in the coming weeks. Mr. Speaker, government remains mindful and appreciative of the continuing commitment on the part of IPPs not only to support Ghana's power sector, but to collaborate with government and the ECG to achieve sustainable future for the sector, while shoring up Ghana's reputation as a compelling investment climate. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has been at the forefront for advocacy for a fit-for-climate global financial architecture while expanding its engagement to mobilize climate finance. At the 2023 IMF World Bank Group annual meetings, Ghana secured critical financing to support climate adaptation and mitigation measures. These include $54 million to establish a Ghana Share Landscape Emission Reduction Project, $4.8 million successfully earned by reducing nearly 1 million tons of carbon emissions through forestry conservation. We expect to earn over $45 million in 2024. Additionally, government has signed 6 MOUs with Switzerland, Singapore, Sweden, South Korea, as well as some public and private entities in line of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Mr. Speaker, our leadership as chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum and the Vulnerable 20 Group is a prime example directed by our Ministries of Finance, Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation, and Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we are in a better place than we were before. The nation has been positively impacted and positioned to harness its prospects. We must move forward courageously, for as 2 Timothy 1 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but, Mr. Speaker, a spirit of courage and of love and of a sound mind, and we must press on. It is in this same vein, Mr. Speaker, of courage and power that we have forged a resilience since 2017. It's important to recall that despite, Mr. Speaker, the poly-crisis of 2019, the poly-crisis in 2020, we have together taken, Mr. Speaker, all of us, a GDP of 219 billion to 1 trillion GDP this year. A key lesson from this leap since 2017 is for us, Mr. Speaker, to eschew unfounded pessimism and nihilism. We have shown, Mr. Speaker, that it is possible. It is possible to triple, to quadruple our GDP. It is possible to create a technologically savvy environment. It is possible to be the investment hub of the region. We should therefore, Mr. Speaker, be collectively proud of ourselves and the can-do spirit of our people. We have proven that a lot more is possible if we stay the course and believe in a future of immense possibilities. To realize our common aspiration, Mr. Speaker, we must continue to speak one language. This is Ghana, a nation united in diversity, a resilient nation on the path to manifest destiny. Every opportunity to safeguard our progress must be protected by adherence to exhortations of Genesis 11:6, that if we speak one language, we can do the impossible. Mr. Speaker, we therefore present to you the Nkommo Victory Budget, a people with a manifest destiny for greatness. We are resilient and we shall prevail because, Mr. Speaker, as we have always said, the battle is indeed the Lord's. God bless our homeland Ghana and make us steadfast to build together a nation that is great and strong in unity. Mr. Speaker, so I move.
Today, what are they leaving behind? They are leaving behind a bankrupt economy, a default, or in other words, yentua economy. They are leaving behind a haircut economy. They are leaving behind a debt-riddled economy. They are leaving behind an overloaded tax economy. They are leaving behind a hyperinflation economy. They are leaving behind a high food inflation economy. As if that is not enough, they are leaving behind a high monetary policy rate economy, an economy with high lending rate. And unfortunately, they are leaving behind an economy with high unemployment rate.
For me, one key thing was the removal of taxes on sanitary pads. It's something that we've been agitating and lobbying for a long time. So I'm happy that the government, a tax it's inherited, it is taking steps to remove it and to bring relief to our adolescents and our young people. So that's a good thing for me.
We are now gaining traction after that. We are building it. We have a year to go. You would see wonders what happens. Watch the space from now to December, whatever date the election is called. See the economy. Look for the details of the monies. Look for the details of the growth. Look at the platform that we are going to mount our campaign going into the next election.
Honorable, so the budget has been presented. Obviously, your colleagues on the minority side are not excited. What are your initial thoughts?
Did you ever expect that they will be excited about a budget that demonstrates clearly that their chances of returning to power in 2024 is diminishing? They will never be excited because their hope and prayer is that inflation will keep rising to 100%, but it's dropped to 35%. It will keep dropping.
So this brings us to a very special episode of BizTech on GhanaWeb TV, where the Finance Minister has been in Parliament to present the 2024 budget and economic policy of government. And the Finance Minister made a number of announcements bordering on tax reliefs for the business community. And we've also been bringing you some reactions from the minority side of Parliament and also some key persons in the majority caucus of Parliament. This has been this week's edition of BizTech. Before we go, don't forget to log on to our website, www.ghanaweb.com. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel, GhanaWeb TV. Once again, I am Mauli Aholumega. Please do stay for Biz Headlines.